This Biz Check, and of course our reporters are around the country. We'll be going to them, and of course I will be getting some updates on what's happening, and of course we'll be keeping tabs with our reporter who is in Malindi County, Kilifi County, in the village of Shakahola, where rescue operations is currently underway. Well, we'll be getting in touch with her just to find out how the situation is. I told you that we are live from Broadcasting House. My Twitter handle is at O'Brien Kimani, and at KBC Channel 1 is our Twitter handle. We want to talk about youth unemployment. How do we address the situation? Is the government doing enough to ensure that this crisis is addressed? Tindi Sitati is the collaboration officer at the United States AIDS International and Development. She's joining us here on the set. She understands a thing or two about how to create employment for young people, as well as create models around cooperatives to generate more jobs. Tindi Sitati, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, explain to us what is considered to be unemployment.
Unemployment, according to me, is the aspect of not having a job. So basically not being able to provide for yourself and your family through lack of income, continuous stream of income that is coming to you. So that means you don't have a consistent income that can label you as being employed. Yes.
There is a cadre of people in this country that we call watu wa mjengo. Would they be classified as unemployed? I mean, bearing in mind that they are employed for a short-term period of time, you know, like 1 to 3 months, or sometimes 4 or 5 months.
We would say that those in the Jua Kali sector are employed, self-employment basically. So they have work, but they're not employed separately, but they have work for themselves. Yes.
Would you classify people in the construction industry as as Jua Kali?
It depends. Jua Kali mostly refers to those who work informally. So as we know, the informal sector in Kenya is very big, and this is a sector that is capitalized by people who have not formalized their businesses. So we have a huge number of youth and women who are working informally in Kenya. So when you talk about Jua Kali, we are really looking at people who are working informally. They are working, they are getting income, but they are working informally, and they are very disadvantaged essentially because they are not able to access, for example, the government social security scheme. They are not able to access, for example, issues to do with employment benefits, but they are working and they are getting an income. But in most cases, you find that the income they are getting is not enough to cater for their daily needs.
How bad is the unemployment situation in Kenya?
In Kenya today, unemployment is a huge challenge, especially for youth. We have about 75% of youth in Kenya in terms of the overall population. 40% of this youth, according to the World Bank, are unemployed. And so you can imagine
40%.
40%. So you can imagine if 40% of the youth, we're looking at the future, yet a huge majority of the population is unemployed. They don't have income. So the situation is big, I might say. Yeah.
And so when you talk about 40% of the youth, you're talking about people in which age bracket?
So we're looking at youth between the ages of 18 to 24. So that is where 18 to 24. But generally, the definition of youth is people who are between the ages of 18 to 35. The general definition, yes.
18 to 35.
It's 18 to 35, yes.
But unemployment affects the people who are within the age bracket of 18 to 24?
Yes, so there's that bracket between 18 to 24 that is affected, that forms the 40%. So you can imagine there's this remaining percentage. And I think it's just a research gap. I think if we are to do that research today, we'll find that the rate of unemployment is probably even higher than what we are seeing today. And remember, youth form 70%. We still have other, people who are above 35 that are still affected by unemployment. So this is something that is beyond, what we know how we can look at it. But I think generally, I believe that the cooperatives business model is a model that can actually bridge the gap of unemployment in the country today. As we know, cooperatives go way back to the early 1900s. We had our very first cooperative in the year 1908, and then fast forward to independence, we had about 1,000 cooperatives forming, and then from independence to where we're at today, we have over 20,000 cooperatives that are currently in existence in the country, and these cooperatives have provided employment opportunities to thousands of Kenyans. And so I believe if we focus the right attention and work with the right stakeholders, we can actually use the cooperative business model to provide employment opportunities to this group.
We shall be digging deep into that concept of cooperatives and see where it fits in today's society, because you're right, as you're saying, the cooperative movement in Kenya is as old as the Republic of Kenya, and it goes back to 1900s, as you are saying. But I just wanted to find out, so that we can put this conversation into context, why are the youth who are within the bracket of 18 to 24 years the most affected? Is it that they are unemployable, or they don't have the core competencies to meet today's job market?
Generally, I don't think they're targeted for unemployment. We just don't have enough jobs in the country. And so we find that we have thousands and thousands of youth who are graduating every year from the university seeking employment, and yet these employment opportunities are not there. They cannot cover this large number of youth. Remember, those who are older have probably managed to find their way through business and other entrepreneurship activities, but those who are just starting up fresh from college are seeking opportunities for employment, and that's why you find that within that gap is where we have more youth who are struggling to get employment and income.
Is the job market ready for these cadre of people?
Absolutely. The job market is ready for anyone who is skilled and ready to make an income and contribute to economic development. I think the question is, do we have enough jobs, to provide for the youth? But I think the job market is ready. I talked about the cooperative sector. There are other sectors. We have the agriculture sector that is doing very well in Kenya, and we have the manufacturing sector. So the opportunities are there. So really, I think it's just providing that enabling environment where youth can actually find jobs and income earning opportunities to make a living.
You see, when you talk to the FKE, or Federation of Kenya Employers, they'll tell you that there is a major mismatch when it comes to the training offered by learning institutions vis-a-vis the jobs that are needed by the market. And companies are ending up spending a lot of money, in training and retraining graduates in the Kenyan market. And so that's why the reason I'm asking you, do you feel or do you believe that the young people or the youth are trained to meet today's job market demands?
I think that is something that is subject to a lot of conversation, but of late we are hearing about skills-based jobs, and that is why there's a lot of conversation around the TVET, where we're looking at how can we utilize technical skills by the youth to provide job opportunities. And I apologize that I will jump back to the cooperative model time and again, because this is a model that has actually proven that it's able to provide opportunities for youth, that these youth are able to use their skills. So we are looking more of skills-based employment, where if I'm an extension officer, I've studied probably extension work in college, and then I get out of college, I provide extension services, training and capacity building to farmers. So I'm utilizing the education I've gotten in college, but I'm also able to get skills out there on how I can improve on this particular work.
When you look at today's world, the ICT world is becoming like the champion of job creations in terms of self-employment or even corporate employment. And we're having new fields like AI, like Internet of Things, like computer coding and so much. And so, you know, experts are saying that this is the future of work. Are these people, you know, primed for these positions?
Absolutely. I think here in Kenya, compared to other countries in Africa, we have youth that are really, you know, they're exposed to the technical advancements that we have experienced as a nation and as a globe. So I think when it comes to IT, I think in Kenya we've demonstrated that we have the machinery, we have the technology, and we do have youth who are very educated in the sector, very skilled, and are able to provide jobs in that particular sector.
And when you look at you know, the Kenyan market, for example, which areas present the most opportunities that we can tap, you know, to spur employment?
I'll say the cooperative sector.
The cooperative sector.
The cooperative sector. Thousands and thousands of people, and not to count those who are in the agriculture value chains, have been employed through the cooperative sector. I know that there are other sectors that are also providing employment and jobs, but cooperatives have proven to be a tool for economic development and jobs creation in the country. And this is a movement that is controlling 43% of Kenya's GDP. So you can imagine the impact that it has on the youth with regards to job creation.
And when you talk about the cooperative sector, and you know, the sector straddles all the other sectors of the economy. We have cooperatives in the banking industry, we have cooperatives in the agriculture sector, in transport, in aviation, in finance, and so in all these sectors, which field do we have the most opportunities that we can tap to open up a job market for young people?
In Kenya, we started off with agriculture cooperatives. I know that most Kenyans were educated by their parents from proceeds from the agriculture cooperatives membership. And so agriculture cooperatives were very popular during the earlier and former years. But today, you find that we have a diversification of the types of cooperatives in the country. We have the housing cooperatives that are providing home ownership opportunities for members. The housing cooperatives are also providing Kenyans with opportunities to invest in housing. We also have the financial cooperatives that we famously call SACCOs, the savings and credit cooperatives, that are providing Kenyans with an opportunity to get credit and go about their projects. We also have mining cooperatives, marketing cooperatives, and the very new entrant that is called the worker cooperative business model. So I think there's a number of cooperatives that we have today that can actually bridge the gap in employment. And personally, I believe the worker cooperative that promotes the world of work, especially for youth, is a cooperative business model that should essentially be given that attention because it has the opportunity to give work, especially for those who are employed. And for the global communities who are working in Kenya through the CLEAR program that is funded by USAID, they've done a lot of work to advocate for this particular worker cooperative model in the country today. When we go back to 2018, when the program began implementation, nobody knew about worker cooperatives. And so we started off working through education and training to Kenyans about what is a worker cooperative and what are the opportunities that worker cooperatives can provide to bridge the gap of unemployment. And so we met this group of fundis, technicians, painters, plumbers, who came together to as a group and formed the Mafundi, the Association of Mafundi in Kenya. And so when we shared with them about the worker cooperative business model, they were very interested because as an association, they were not able to transact, to work, to get income. And so when they transitioned to the worker cooperative model through support from global communities, they were now able to work through a structure that was able to provide opportunities for work for them. And now they're known as Funditech service cooperatives. They're operating here in Kenya, and they're able to negotiate for contracts on behalf of the members, and they're making income. They're improving their lives and that of their families. So we are seeing how the cooperative model can be used to really bridge that gap of employment, especially through worker cooperatives. We also have a group of ladies who are solar engineers who came together to form a worker cooperative for solar installation and training. So you can imagine if these were the same youth we are talking about who graduated and sat back and were waiting for employment, where are the jobs? So through the cooperative model, Kenyans have an opportunity to define work and get work for themselves. So they are able to go and register a worker cooperative and provide labor in return, get the income that they desire. So I think there's a lot of work that global communities has done to create awareness around this particular model. We have worked with the government, the State Department of Cooperative. We've also worked with the counties through the Council of Governors to ensure that we have the correct policy and legislation provisions that can actually support the operationalization of worker cooperatives in the country today. So we are also working with the apex organizations like the Cooperative Alliance of Kenya. We are working with the Cooperative University of Kenya, because concerted efforts are required to ensure that such innovations and new models in the cooperative sector can be accepted, so that we can have buy-in, so that we can have more and more Kenyans getting job and getting work through this particular model.
And when you look at the government policies in terms of job creation, there has been a lot of emphasis that has gone into spurring the manufacturing sector, where the government plans to increase the contribution of manufacturing to GDP to about 15% by the year 2025. We have also seen a lot of emphasis being given to agro-processing, and all these is aimed at creating more job opportunities. Do you think government policies are aligned when it comes to job creation?
Absolutely. I think we always joke about it and say that Kenya has the best policies. It's not a joke, it's the truth. We do have very good policies. I think the challenge comes to when it comes to implementation. So we have very good policies that are on paper, but are we implementing these policies? So I think that should be the conversation, how we can move the policies from paper to actualization with regards to implementation. And when we discover the secret behind that process, I think it will go a long way towards growing the economy.
As non-state actors, how are you then working with the government to help in the making policies a reality? As
global communities, we are very keen in looking at issues to do with cooperatives, policies and legislation. As I mentioned earlier, we are in engagement with the State Department of Cooperatives and the counties through leadership and guidance from the Council of Governors. And what we are doing currently is we've been looking at the National Cooperatives Policy that is hopefully going to be passed very soon, that will define how cooperatives on the ground work. So there's a lot of work that we are doing in partnership with the counties to support them to formulate and draft cooperatives specific policies for the counties that speak to the needs of the cooperatives on the ground. Remember, cooperatives is a devolved function, so counties have the power and the mandate to actually work on their own cooperatives policies and legislation. So currently we are working with over 20 counties and ensuring that we are supporting them in the drafting and formulation process. We also partnered with Strathmore Business School, where we launched a course on public policy making process, and this course was administered to county cooperative officials to ensure that their skills in public policy are improved and increased. And so after that training that began in 2019, we have quite a number of county officers that are now fully equipped to draft policies that speak to the needs of their counties. So there's a lot of work that has gone through that in partnership with the government and the Council of Governors.
And when you talk about 20 counties, which are these counties, and what are some of the challenges that you have identified in the course of working with these counties?
Right. So we have a number. We are working with Makueni, we are working with Nyeri, we are working with Nairobi, Kiambu County, and Kisumu County, Homa Bay, and we have others that are joining the bandwagon because of the realization that they need to come up strongly towards defining the policies that are required for their cooperatives. So the challenges that the counties are facing are many, especially with regards to leadership, basically not necessarily the counties, but the cooperatives in the counties. Remember, county cooperative officials work to support the cooperatives within their various counties. So cooperatives are going through various challenges to do with leadership, to do with management. Just in the news in the past few years, we've seen how there are management issues that cooperatives are going through that are bringing a lot of wrangles, corruption, the issue of the term limits for leaders. And so all these issues are supposed to be defined and well articulated in the policies to ensure that the cooperatives on the ground are able to operate efficiently. And so those are the issues that are being faced, and we believe that through our work with the counties and the stakeholders on policy, we're able to actually address these challenges.
And you've rightly put it, the cooperative movement has gone through a rough phase because of number one, mismanagement of our contributions, number two, evolving technology whereby they're somehow being caught in some sort of a time warp. So how do you make them engines of economic development as well as job creation?
For the CLEAR program within global communities, what we have done is we have a component. One of our objectives is to improve the business performance for cooperatives. Cooperatives are businesses like any other. So when we focus a lot, on the SMEs, we have a lot of organizations, funding that goes to SMEs and MSMEs. We also need to ask ourselves, what about the cooperatives? Currently, we are having youth who are establishing startup cooperatives. Are there stakeholders out there who are looking at how to support these cooperatives because they are businesses? So as a program, we have developed an approach that looks at 5 key areas. That is governance, leadership, management, production, and marketing. And using these 5 key areas, we are providing technical assistance, coaching, mentorship to these young businesses to ensure that they are able to develop their business skills, and also to ensure that they are able to establish businesses that can compete in the market. So we know that for especially startup businesses, they barely survive 6 months into being established. And so we are very keen to ensure that these startup cooperatives that are being formed by youth are adequately supported. We are linking them with financial partners who can be able to provide financing. And generally, we are trying to ensure that as youth get into the cooperatives, because another issue is, do we have youth involved and participating in cooperatives? They say the cooperative sector is an aging movement. So how do we ensure that youth are getting into the movement by supporting them? So we cannot leave them to do this work by themselves. So through our support to the youth, we've seen how they've been able to take up the cooperative business very seriously. We have a youth partner worker cooperative that is in Langata constituency that deals with waste management. Initially, they were operating as a group, and this is a group of between 18 to 35 youth that are aged between 18 to 35. They used to collect waste individually amongst the residents in Langata. And so when they learned about the worker cooperative business model, they were excited about it because they were looking for an opportunity to structure their business so that they can be able to negotiate for contracts and get work. So these youth are in the final stages of actually registering as a worker cooperative, and so we've supported them through registration. We are supporting the same youth through their various business growth stages. It is important because that is in how we are going to reduce the number of businesses that fail in within 6 months. So I think as an organization, we've prioritized the aspect of policy and legislation. We need to have the right provisions that speak to the needs of cooperatives. And that's why it's a continuous process in how we are working with the government and the counties to ensure that these policies are put in place, but also working closely with the youth, walking with them that journey to ensure that the businesses they are establishing are working, especially in the initial stages, so that they can be able to flourish in the future. So those are the two key areas that we have been focusing on as a program.
Do you support them financially to set up their businesses?
No. What we do as a program is we provide technical assistance, and then we link them with financial institutions that actually now provide financing. We believe that sometimes youth might imagine that it is capital they lack, and sometimes when you provide that capital, you find that still they have challenges in the business. So for our organization, we believe that the aspect of training, capacity building and strengthening is very important, because cooperatives are businesses. They should make money. If you're in the business world and you're not making money, what are you doing?
Has this model tried elsewhere?
Yes, the model has been tried in the United States of America and Spain and other countries across the globe. Right.
What has been the success rate?
The success rate, I'll speak about the ability to basically come out of external shocks. For example, when we had COVID-19, a number of cooperatives were reported across the globe to be resilient to this COVID-19, because they were able to pull together and to support each other and to ensure that their businesses are still in operation. And this can only happen through the cooperatives business model. Cooperatives are people-centered enterprises that are owned, controlled, run and managed by members themselves. So across the globe, and even in Kenya, I mean, we did have the cooperatives COVID-19 committee that was established by the State Department of Cooperatives that came through to support cooperatives during the COVID-19 pandemic. So the worker cooperative business model is really something that can, or a business model that can support entrepreneurs be resilient to the external shocks, but also to grow their businesses to the next level.
And you're talking about offering this worker cooperatives, technical support as well as technical know-how on how to manage their businesses. Do you have like some form of follow-through processes of ensuring that they succeed and they flourish, and once they flourish, they remain afloat?
As a program, we are what we do is we use a partnership approach, where when we partner with a cooperative, we walk with them the journey of establishing their businesses. We also use what we call the Cooperatives Performance Index Assessment, where we sit down with the cooperative board and identify the challenges that the cooperative is facing, so that in our approach towards provision of technical assistance, we speak to the needs of the cooperatives. We've had partnerships with currently 19 cooperatives in the country, and these cooperatives are across several counties and different sectors of the economy. For the worker cooperatives, we are currently working with 9 of them in Makueni, Nyeri and Nairobi County, and these worker cooperatives are in clean energy, waste management, housing and construction. We also have those in tourism and clean energy, as I mentioned. So we work with them that journey and ensure that they are well equipped and they are ready to flourish. So we don't partner with them, train them and leave them out in the air. No, we are certain, and we acknowledge that the process of supporting startup businesses takes a while. It takes a period of time. We need to ensure that even those that are joining from the housing cooperative sector are anchored under Apex organizations such as the National NACHU, basically. So we are keen to ensure that these cooperatives flourish at some point. So we spend some adequate time with them in that support.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're in the company of Tindi, and our conversation this morning revolves around creation of jobs for young people through the cooperative model. I was taking you through the numbers, and unemployment in Kenya is estimated to be around 6%. it was worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. The economy has not been growing as fast to create more jobs because the average economic growth has been about 5.5%. And the World Bank says that for Kenya to generate more job numbers, the economy needs to grow at a rate of 10% annually. And when you look at the Vision 2030, it talks about a growth of 10% all the way through up to the year 2030. We know that for sure we have missed a third target in the last 12 years. And the question is, are we going to meet this target in the next 8 years? That's a conversation that we're having here in studio. This is Tindi Sitati. She's the officer in charge of collaborations, learning and adaptation excuse me, at USAID. Before I let you go, Tindi, what is the future of this cooperative model in Kenya when it comes to creation of jobs?
Thank you, Brian. And maybe just to clarify that I'm the Collaboration, Learning and Adaptation Officer for the CLEAR program that is implemented by global communities and funded by USAID. I think cooperatives have a very bright future looking ahead. I mean, when we started, we already spoke about the fact that they are controlling 43% of Kenya's GDP. And we also spoke about the fact that they're diversifying. When we started, we had the agriculture cooperatives, and now we have housing, we have mining cooperatives, we have worker cooperatives. So I think the future looks good. However, we need to really address the issue of youth and women inclusion, especially when it comes to cooperatives. Women are facing quite a number of challenges to do with gender stereotyping, where the society has placed their home to be, their work to be, to take care of their families and not to participate in economic development. There's also a lot of, expectation that women are not supposed to own land, yet we all know that land ownership is very important. It is a key towards accessing financing for businesses, and because women are unable to own this land, they're not able to participate in cooperatives. Youth also need to engage in cooperatives. I think as a country, if we look at the numbers that we have for youth, 75% is huge. And so if we're not thinking about how we are going to provide economic activities for this youth, then this success for the cooperative movement might not go any further. So I think as at where we're at as an organization, we are speeding and continuing up our work with the counties, the Council of Governors, and the State Department of Cooperatives to ensure that we have the policy and legislation provisions for worker cooperatives, and that we continue to support counties to establish their cooperatives specific policies and legislation. I think that will go a long way towards describing and defining the future of cooperatives in the country. And as I conclude, I think we also need to look at issues to do with management. We've talked about the challenges that cooperatives are facing, and also issues to do with market access. We have the latest worker cooperative that was formed in Nyeri County. It's called the Kenya Guides and Porters Safari, and this is a tourism cooperative essentially. So we are seeing more and more diversification of these cooperatives, especially by youth, but we need to start asking ourselves, how can we create markets for the cooperatives that are up and coming? So if we address these issues, I believe that we'll move from, Kenya is currently leading in Africa in the cooperative sector, and we are ranked 7th globally. So I think if we look at these issues to do with policy and legislation, market access, management, then we might just move from position 7 to position 1 globally. And
of course, as you're saying, I mean, there's some challenges that we need to deal with, what you would call systemic challenges within the cooperative movement, and one of them is the adoption of technology in the industry, as well as entrenching proper management of the cooperatives. And then the other thing, before I let you go, because I can see time is very well spent. Look, you see, the average age of a cooperative member in Kenya is about 55 years. 75% of the Kenyan population is aged between 18 years to 35 years. And so then the challenge comes, then how do you make the cooperative movement attractive enough for the younger generations to join?
And that's a very important question. And in our interactions with the youth, we learned that we need to sit with the youth discuss with them about their needs for business and in the world of work. And that is why this is a situation that we are trying to address through the worker cooperative business model. Youth in Kenya are very vibrant, they are very innovative, they are very dynamic, and so we believe that preparing or presenting this worker cooperative model to them will actually give them an opportunity to establish work for themselves. We need them in the cooperative sector, and but so far we are not getting the responses we are getting and the active participation that we are, but in our partnerships with the cooperatives, we are trying to understand what initiatives are existing within the cooperatives to ensure that they are onboarding youth as members. So this is something that we are really looking at as an organization, but top on the list is the worker cooperative business model. I believe that this model has a very huge opportunity to transform the world of work for the youth. We don't want youth to get lost in the informal sector. We want them to establish businesses that are formalized, that are working within the laws of the country, and I believe that utilizing the cooperative business model can actually be the solution towards ensuring that youth are getting employment, but they're also involving and engaging themselves more within the cooperative sector.
Very good. Tindi, Sitati, thank you for your time this morning, and of course we look forward to have you again in the future. Thank you. Asante for your insight. Well, our conversation this morning has been around the creation of jobs for young people using the cooperatives model. You have heard it from Tindi Sitati. She's an expert on cooperatives, and she was sharing with us, some insights on how, we can tap the cooperatives to create jobs in this country. And we went through some very interesting numbers here, whereby the most affected in the unemployment world are people between the ages of 18 to 25. The question is why? And these are the people that are just graduating from universities and leaving learning institutions. And so we need to rethink our business and our job creation model so that we can ensure, or we ensure, that we are well primed for the job market. Well, the second segment of this check is coming up next. We want to look at financial inclusion. Why do we still have so many SMEs unable to access credit in a country that boasts of about almost 90% financial access? Well, that's a conversation we shall be having next. And I also want to update myself. Pastor Paul Mackenzie is the one at the center of the Shakahola tragedy. I was confusing with Ezekiel Odera. Let me ensure that I got the name right. Yes, Odero. He was questioned this morning by police in regard to his church, and the name of the church is called Mavueni Mega Church, which is also based in Kilifi County. Stay right here.